Hotel maids of Reddit. What is the weirdest or most disgusting activity you have walked in on while you were about to clean the room? NSFW. Laundry assistant housekeeper for a nursing home here. Walked in on a couple residents masturbating throughout the years. This year I walked into the room of one of our nastier residents and found him with his pants down and he had ducking maggots crawling all over his junk. Apparently he'd refused a shower for several weeks, if not longer. He's been sent to another facility. I used to work as a housekeeper in a hotel with themed fantasies. We had an underwater room, an igloo room, even a space themed room with a spaceship bed. This particular room was the jungle themed room, complete with a king size swinging bed. We always knock a few times and announce we're entering through an open crack in the door, but I suppose the occupants of the room couldn't hear me over 60 times. I know walking in on people having sex is maybe more common of the weirdest or most disgusting, but these two happen to be around 500 pounds each. Slow motion, swinging, sweaty, loud, gelatinous pounding. They didn't see me walk in, but I still yelled out sorry unnecessarily and awkwardly loud and slammed the door. Edit. Unnecessary suffix removed. Edit. For those curious. This hotel was in southeastern Wisconsin. I worked there about 10 years ago and it's since been closed. I'm a 4th generation Alberta oil field worker and my dad told me a story about a frack crew in an Alberta hotel. I don't know if you guys know, but a frack crew is a large group of men, sometimes women, but not many, between 20 and 50 guys and they vary in age from 18 to their mid 50s. The crew decided that for some reason, this was the perfect night to get absolutely hammered drunk and duck up summit. They had multiple complaints, and when the front desk staff finally sent up the cops to start kicking asses out, they discovered that the large and very inebriated group had decided that they wanted to party together, but the single room was too small, so they had smashed the wall out between two rooms. I'm assuming that those who participated no longer had careers as frackers with that particular company. My sister was a hotel maid while she was in university and told me this one. She was called to her room because there were complaints of someone making loud moaning noises and there were the sounds of someone drilling into something. What she walked into would be something she would not soon forget. A man had hung suspended himself from both his feet, his body, and his throat and was suspended in the air masturbating. The drilling was him putting supports for him to suspend the ropes from the ceiling. There were also rubber ducks everywhere. She promptly left. Here's a sketch of it. I was a room service dude for a few years. A lady had a miscarriage in her bed and cuddled the fetus for a few days. That was pretty messy. Well, I worked the front desk at the hotel, but my friend who I used to work with was the houseman and he told me this story once. So it was checkout day for this room, and if the guest haven't come to the front desk by 11:30 am, checkout is 11 am, then we call the rooms. This particular room didn't pick up the phone when we called from the front desk, which isn't that unusual as sometimes people just leave the hotel without checking out. Anyway, my friend, the houseman, goes up to check that the room is clear empty, but he can't open the room with his master swipe key. It was dead bolted from the inside. So we get the all clear from management to open the door and get maintenance to open it with their override keys. The houseman walks in to find the woman still in bed asleep. He says, "Mom, it's time to wake up," and touches her leg. Stone cold. Rigor mortis. TL. Doctor, my friend touched a cold dead body because he thought they were asleep. Front desk here. Working right now. Hep, we have had many shenanigans happen. A very nice businessman with a briefcase checked into a room. Really a very nice person. Didn't hear much from him all night other than him asking where the liquor store was. Upon morning, he had checked out and left without talking to the desk. Not uncommon. When the maid went in to clean the room, she found quite the surplus. Apparently this man had a mild case of alcoholism. He had bought 2 bottles of booze and proceeded to drink it all, as well as spill some onto the phone. Puke all over. And the worst, it everywhere. In the bed, on the floor, in the tub, on the shower curtain, all over the toilet, and tried to clean his mess up with all the towels. Needless to say, we have his name hanging up on the list of people who cannot rent a room. Former fan manager, front desk manager and catering manager, at different times. While working the desk one morning, A housekeeper came up to the front desk, pale as all hell, shaking, saying we needed to call the police. Apparently, a young woman checked in around 2 AM the night before and performed, or attempted to perform, a self-abortion. There was blood all over the bed, carpet, chair, walls, door, bathtub. Looked like a murder scene. We originally thought that's what happened, but the investigation revealed what happened. Horrific. Never any activity in progress, but I've definitely cleaned up the aftermaths of very interesting activities. There was the poop room. A young couple with 2 babies leaves after 3 days. I walk into it storm of actual it, poop on the walls, poop on the carpet, poop on the sheets, poop on the towels, poop as far as the eye could see. No tip. I literally shed tears of self-pity as I cleaned up the remnants. Another good one was what could only be assumed was a bachelorette party that left me a bit of an gift, an intricate, free-floating web of yarn intertwined with at least a full deck of playing cards featuring 1970s porn stars hung, no pun intended, majestically from where the curtains once were. The worst part was that my supervisor made me take it to the lost and found, where I was forced to come up with a description of the item. I went with hanging pornography mobile, while blushing and giggling hysterically. I was room service for a few years. I served a 50-60-year-old French Canadian dude who was in nothing but short shorts with a 18-ish-year-old Asian boy in full scuba gear on the bed. Edit. Clarification. A maid at this super ghetto hotel once walked in on my friend and I smoking joints made from ripped pages of the Bible that the hotel had in one of the nightstand drawers. We had ripped out a bunch of pages and scattered them all across the hotel floor. She then proceeded to yell at us in Spanish and walked out, slamming the door along the way. We spent the rest of the day incredibly nauseous. Rather than going to Six Flags that day like we intended, we spent the day throwing up and lying in bed. It could have been the glossy Bible paper and ink we inhaled, but I like to think it was some sort of Mexican curse the maid put on us, like Madame Zeroni style in holes. I guess that's what we get for being 18 and thinking it was edgy to smoke joints made out of Bible paper. We did leave her a large tip though. We were a couple of assholes, but we weren't monsters. My time to shine. I walked in a couple having sex once. No biggie, right? Didn't scream. Just blushed slightly and beat a hasty retreat. They left the hotel at 1 PM. Half an hour before my shift ended, so I was in a rush to get the room done so I could go home. I figured it wouldn't take me long. I was wrong. 2 words for you, period 6. Let me add here that I'm not opposed to the idea of period 6 in principle. What I'm opposed to is cleaning up after someone else's period 6. They'd put down towels to save the sheets. Thoughtful, but they used the hotel's towels. Had to throw them away in the end. The towel wasn't big enough though, obviously, since the sheets were blood-stained too, and the comforter, which they'd hidden in the wardrobe. I kind of thought that a murder had occurred at this point, since there was blood everywhere, but the bin in the bathroom which was overflowing with used tampons confirmed my initial suspicions. They didn't bother to use the sanitary bags provided. A quick aside, note to any ladies reading this, if sanitary bags are provided, use them. It's a health hazard to just leave bloody tampons in a bin. Anyway, I didn't finish my shift until 2:30 PM. It was okay though, since I wasn't really in the mood for lunch anyway. Not me, but a friend. He worked maintenance and got a call to fix a broken door latch. As he approached the room, a 13-year-old girl comes storming out, yelling at her parents that she wasn't watching this again. Girl lets my friend in the room. Then it gets real. The girl's mom and dad are 250 and 300 pounds, respectively. Friend says he's there to work on the door. Both parents are laying underneath the covers in bed, which is nothing that odd. They tell my friend to get to work, and as he starts pulling out his tools, both parents get out of bed. They're completely naked and proceed to start porking doggy style on the end of the bed. My friend says he'll just come back. The dad screams for him to keep working as he loudly plows his wife. Friend can hardly work because he's so shaken up. He never looks back, except for one time on his way out the door, when he sees that the dad was so fat. He laid his belly up on top of his wife's back and had a chocolate milk in his hand. A stag party, bachelor party, was staying in the hotel I work in, and they got ridiculously drunk one night before retiring to their rooms. The next day after they'd checked out, we went into their room only to be greeted by the foulest smell I've ever experienced. Upon entering, we discovered that the two guys sharing one room had not only vomited, but had it everywhere in this room. All over the beds, the floor, in the bin. Some of it was even smeared up the walls. I can only imagine that they were so intoxicated that they lost all control of their bodily functions. No wonder they checked out so hastily. In conclusion, that room had to be completely refurbished. New beds, new carpet, new paint on the walls. It was weeks before it was usable again. Needless to say, the culprits were contacted and made to pay the cost of damages, as they'd obviously tried to escape without blame. A guy I worked with told a story of how he got called to a room back when doors had round doorknobs. He couldn't open the door because the guy inside the room kept screaming when anyone attempted to enter. Turns out, the guy on the inside had the doorknob up his ass and it was stuck. As a housekeeping supervisor, I didn't observe anything too extreme, but why do people have to do weird it with their it? I have never had a problem missing the toilet or eating the bed my whole life, and these people do it during a quick stay at a hotel. One time in particular, it appeared someone did some fecal finger painting all over the bathroom. It looked like someone murdered a chocolate Easter bunny. I was really not prepared to learn how many people smear their it all over hotel rooms. Housekeeping supervisor here. I've had to call the cops and then help bust a guy posting Craigslist glory hole ads in our hotel. That is, he would be the mouth on the other side. He had a fake folding wall he had set up right when you walked into the room with a hole in it. I'm not sure if we caught him before he got any action, but that wall looked pretty used. I used to be a night auditor and I have my own stories as that, but the one housekeeping story I always remember was when I was coming off shift one morning after covering a few extra hours for the day shift, when one of the new housekeepers ran to the desk and said someone was being attacked on the 3rd floor. So I grabbed my manager's keys and headed upstairs and was barely off the elevator when I heard what was very much not someone being attacked. She was screaming her head off though, and he sounded like he was obliging her repeated requests for harder. A few guests were standing around the hallways listening. Most found it funny, but I radioed the front desk to accidentally give the room a wake-up call to settle them down. Poor housekeeper was sitting in back shaking because she thought someone was being murdered in their room. Not really walked in on, but one of the strangest thing I've ever experienced. I work in small hotel bar in the middle of rural Alberta. The staff here are pretty close and we all know each other. One morning in the fall, one of the staff found a box outside one of the hotel side door exits, soaked in blood and filled with fresh organs. Needless to say, he was shocked by it, but not to worry. Being a hunter, he knew it was not human. He went to the front desk to announce his odd and disturbing findings. Confusion spreads. About an hour or so later, questions were answered and then more questions were asked. The chambermaids found the source. In one of the rooms had blood covering the bathroom tub and various areas. The guest had somehow killed a deer, brought it into the hotel side door and butchered it in the room. TLDR, panic in hotel. Only one life lost. I expected to see someone comment about that guy who puts headphones on and jacks off and films it when the cleaning ladies walk in. His videos are on effect. I'm ready for this thread. My mother works for a hotel and she would have a customer who would come by every Tuesday at 2 PM with a different woman every week. He would always leave the room pretty messy but nothing too out of the norm. But this particular week he brought a particularly heavy set African American woman and he checked out much earlier than usual. When my mother went into the room, she smelled a foul stench and right in the middle of the bed was a large pile of human it. She threw out the bedding. Poor mom. Ugh. Did this job for a while. Worst job I ever had. So much phlegm and jizz in the showers. Every single day. Like not just one gross person but multiple gross people. Every goddamn day. Also really badly blood-stained sheets. I just hope that it was messy period 6 and not some horrifically violent sexual assault and tried not to think about it. Just on the other side of things. When I was staying in a hotel, I once had a maid walk in right as the girl I was ducking orgasmed really loudly. We heard a crash as they sprinted out the room. I ran after them, naked because we were scared, and they just left the whole trolley of cleaning supplies. I checked. The room security was still set to private, so they shouldn't have come in. Looking back, I can understand why they would leave their stuff behind if a naked man started running out of his room at you. Sorry for any traumatized maids out there. Okay, not a maid, but I was a front desk worker who had to go to rooms after everyone else left. So this old guy who just checked in with his old leather bag wife called up and said something along the lines of, "Hey, we were told that you could hook up a DVD player and it's not working. You had better fix it." So I went up there and there he was shirtless, wearing short shorts, and his wife is obviously topless with a sheet covering while smoking and pouring vodka into wine glasses. So nervously I attach the DVD player and it's a porno DVD already going. Husband says thank you over eagerly while touching my shoulder. To make it worse, I heard the old leather bag say, "I wonder what time his shift ends. Maybe we could invite him." I noped all the way back to the front counter and wouldn't go near that room until they left. I went to South America for vacation, and when I got back I was looking through the photos I had taken. I guess I pissed off the housekeeper because one of my photographs featured the woman inserting my toothbrush up her asshole. And it wasn't a selfie, so one of the other housekeepers must have taken the photo. WTF. I was planning on going to apply for a housekeeping job at a hotel tomorrow. Duck this thread. Man made here. I never walked in on anything, but I touched a small dot of poop that I thought was a cigarette burn in the bathtub. I wish I could seen my face. I've seen a lot of posts on here about periodics or poop ruining sheets and towels, and how they just threw it all out. Don't these people get charged for that? I mean, every hotel I've been to has required a credit card on file before I got the room. Serious question. Till I'm the only person who puts the "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door when I masturbate in hotel rooms. My mom used to be a hotel maid. She told me a story of how she went into a room. There was no "Do Not Disturb" danger, and walked in on two men having sex. Nothing weird really. Just that this was the 70s and my mom was new to the country and she'd never seen two men together before. So she was in shock and just stood there, wide-eyed and staring. The men shouted for her to get out and she apologized profusely. She felt bad, but they didn't have a sign. I babysat these two kids for a little and I walked in on them watching dog porn together. I told the mom and she said, "Yeah, sometimes they do that, no big deal." I decided to stop babysitting them shortly after that. I've been a housekeeper for a few years now. I only have a few notable experiences, but I work at a pretty high scale hotel, so that may be a factor. One of my first rooms ever I will forever refer to as the consummation room. It was one of our suites, and first walking into it, there were hundreds of fake rose petals all over the floor, a bottle of wine and 2 used glasses. Nothing crazy. My co-worker told me she'd handle the living room and I should strip and make up the bed. I walk in the bedroom and there's a few more wine glasses, a nice amount of condom wrappers on the floor, whatever. At the bed, I lifted the top comforter only to witness the grossest swamp of hymen ruination and girl juice ever. It had seeped like crazy to the outer edges of the bed, leaked through the sheets into the mattress. The first thought I had was, perverted as it was, well, she must have been a squirter. Another time a man I was making a bed for invited me to his room for drinks and a good time. I made sure not to bend over at all while putting his towels away. I can't say I've walked into anything too weird though. Generally people do a good job of covering up their nastiness until they are on their merry way out the door. Till that, hotel rooms are vile and disgusting and that I should never stay in one. I'm not a hotel worker or anything, but one time my husband and I were staying at a hotel and bought some chocolate body paint. Well, I painted his knob and then licked and bobbed that ducker for a while. Afterwards I noticed that my drool and the paint had run down his balls and created a very disgusting looking puddle of pooish colored mess. I'm sure the housekeeper thought she was washing poop too. This is a silver lining story. Sometimes the poop you think is poop is just poopy chocolate cock drool. I worked at what I affectionately dub a whore-infested crack den. Some of the gems. 1. First day dead body. Woman had offed herself because she found her husband cheating. Empty bottle of wine and pill bottles on nightstand with a note. Manager was mad because she did everywhere and we couldn't rent the room till we replaced the mattress. 2. Woman who had medical issues. She was there for 2 weeks, and when she finally left we had to hire a professional cleaning service because she had it everywhere. It was like she'd locked a dog in there, but it was liquidy and trodden everywhere like a colostomy bag had busted, and she just didn't care. 3. Girl steps out of her room. Housekeeping walks in and finds a pile of drugs on the table. Coke lined up. Heroin needles next to spoons. The works. She calmly locked the door and went to the front desk, where we then locked the room down and had cops waiting for them to return. Turns out girl was underage and her 30-something pimp was having a party in there with her. 4. Pot plant growing in the back lot. 5. Dildos attached to walls. On the bed. Under the mattress. Lubricants everywhere. IT was on the ceiling. We still do not know how. Luckily they wore condoms, but left them all over the floors. 6. Chick got kidnapped from a local club and tied up in the room for a day or so. Got out and called the cops, which was a fun surprise when I came into the hotel. There's more, but those are the highlights I usually mention when people ask about my time there. Searching for the housekeeper who found my brother after he'd killed himself. It was in Destin, Florida, and I think about that poor housekeeper a lot. If you're reading, I'm really sorry you had to witness that. It was very unkind and inconsiderate of him. My grandma worked in a motel back in the 50s in New Mexico, and a group of priests came in once and it in a small trash can. So there's that. When I was 17 I worked at a hotel in housekeeping, and aside from having to crawl into big jacuzzis to clean out nasty stuff, it wasn't so bad. But once I was called to a room and 2 women answered the door and invited me in, saying they needed the room cleaned and that their gross husbands have clogged the toilet. This would have been fine if their husbands weren't left behind to watch me. Those 2 weirdos laid on their beds with no TV on, mind you, and watched my every move as I cleaned and vacuumed and bent over. It was awful, and then I had to unclog their diarrhea toilet while they watched. Worst day at that job. I'd rather find condoms and bloody sheets. I know I'm late to the dance, so this will probably get buried, but when I was a young, I cleaned motel rooms in Missoula, Montana. Fish came through town, and our humble establishment somehow ended up playing host to legions of Fish fans. Oh my crap. Cleaning those rooms was the most vile thing that I have ever experienced. Boxes upon empty boxes of lice color, used condoms laying on the carpet, vomit everywhere, and occasionally a used needle. Oh Christ. The vomit. I can still smell the rank, crusty, 12 hours old hippie vomit. Zero problem with hippies. For the record. Just the crusty, dirty, prolific vomiters. TL. Dr. Dirty Hippies are called dirty hippies for a damned good reason. Not me, but a friend worked as a maid at a hotel for quite a while, and there was a couple staying that had been there for around 3 months. The woman staying was morbidly obese and pretty much stayed in bed constantly because of her size. Alright, I suppose, but in these 3 months they refused room service every day. So to clarify, this woman stayed in bed all day and didn't have her bed changed once in 3 months. Finally, after 3 months, the couple came to the desk and said they were leaving but refused to pay anything and just said they did not have the money. They left, and of course the hotel called the police. Nothing could have prepared the maids for what they were about to walk into. The walls had been smeared with it and other bodily fluids. There were stacks and stacks of moldy fast food and cups sitting on the tables, and the grime in the bathroom had reached a new level of disgusting. The worst thing though was the bed. It turned out the woman had not only stayed in bed, but had not bothered to leave to go to the bathroom, so there were pee and it stains all over. The mattress was still damp, and as you can imagine, the smell was unbelievable. Pretty much everything in the room had to be dumped and the room professionally deep cleaned due to the smell. Even the carpet had to be changed because of mysterious stains which no one wanted to investigate.